Chef, I'm sorry. I don't know if you like the dish or not.
You don't know if I like the dish or not? Well, let's put it this way.
What's going on, and welcome to Just Geek Show, the video series where we talk comics. And if you're new and like to support the channel, you can do so by hitting that like button, clicking that subscribe button, and sharing. And with that, let's talk the new Black Widow movie. So Black Widow is a 2021 Marvel movie that stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, and David Harbour. It's a movie that takes place after Captain America Civil War, and Natasha Romanoff, she's on the run from Thunderbolt Ross because she broke the Sokovia Accords. And so she runs and she does her best to stay off the radar, at least until she comes into possession of this red drug that is able to break the mind control of the assassins that come out of the Red Room. This unfortunately puts her in the path of Taskmaster, who is, well, tasked with getting the drug. And after this initial encounter, Natasha's like, okay, well, we need to work backwards, and she ends up heading back towards Russia, where she has to reconnect with people from her past, people that she used to call family. And in that, they need to work out their differences to bring down the Red Room once and for all. Which ends up amounting to your typical Marvel formula. Got your character story, mixed in with your action scenes, got your comedy, and it all culminates in a big CGI fight at the end. And what's really interesting is this is a movie that a lot of people say is anywhere from 5 to 10 years too late. Because when it comes to the original core Avengers, which Natasha was part of, her and Hawkeye were the only two that didn't get their own solo movie. Instead, Natasha got introduced in Iron Man 2, and Hawkeye was promptly introduced in the first Thor film. Albeit, Natasha played a much bigger role in Iron Man 2 at least. But I guess the question is, despite us knowing how her story ends in Avengers Endgame, how does this movie stack up on its own? To which I'll say, it's okay. Like I said, the core Marvel formula is there, and in that, there is a lot of fun to actually be had with this movie. Because in the typical Marvel movie, the action scenes usually leave me satisfied. They can get big and explosive, the choreography and the fight scenes are typically well done. I think some of the scenes involving Taskmaster are fairly interesting, particularly that first fight between Taskmaster and Black Widow. As Black Widow is, making movements and Taskmaster is following her. And overall, it does make for some interesting opposition for Natasha because Taskmaster is able to effectively copy all of the fighting movements of the Avengers. Things we actually get to see throughout the movie. When it comes to the acting, I was okay in this area too. Scarlett Johansson by this point has done the Black Widow character for so long that she just does it. She looks comfortable in the role, she recites her lines in a comfortable manner, and yeah, like always, she owns it. When it comes to Florence Pugh's introduction into the MCU as kind of the younger other Black Widow, I think she also does very good. Rachel Weisz is also in this movie as Melina Vostokov, and I typically like Rachel Weisz, so no complaints. But for me, one of the more standout performances was David Harbour in this movie, as he is playing Alexei, aka the Red Guardian, aka the Russian Captain America. And David Harbour looks like he's just having fun here. He's loud, he's expressive, he's primarily used as the comedic relief, and, he lands for the most part. And so this story takes all of these core characters here and tries to do this sort of family dynamic. And this is where I'll be getting into some spoilers, so if you haven't seen this movie, you might want to click off and come back to it later. Because in the beginning of this movie, Yelena, Natasha, Melina, and Alexei, they were actually undercover in America, posing as the basic American family, holding jobs, going to school, and just being convincing. So convincing, in fact, that it essentially became real for them. And so when they have to pack up and escape back to Russia, it is kind of heartbreaking. Because you can tell they don't want to leave. They like where they're at. Which leads into the scene of everybody getting back to Russia, the family getting separated, and through the opening credits, both Natasha and Yelena going through the Red Room training. And this is a very captivating and interesting opening sequence. It's very dark and moody and feels very appropriate. As far as negative aspects of the movie go, there are a couple. It's not a perfect film. For one, I gave some positives to David Harbour's performance, And in that, he's also a bit of a negative as well. Mostly because I kind of wanted to see a little bit more of him and wanted to get a little bit more about him, as well as his underutilization in action sequences. Because really, he has two main action sequences in this movie: the prison breakout scene, and then in the finale when he does battle with Taskmaster. There is one scene in the movie that you think is going to turn into an action sequence, but ends up turning into more of an abduction sequence, and in his particular case, yeah, again, he's there for comic relief, so his capture is done for comedic effect. Because his character is effectively yesterday's hero. He was the guy that used to have action figures, used to get put on the lunch boxes, but he's past his heyday, past his prime, and he really wants nothing more than to recapture his glory days. This is very evident that almost immediately after breaking out of prison and hooking up with Melina, he goes back and tries to put on his Red Guardian suit, which he does successfully after some struggles and sucking in his gut. I just wish we had a few more serious take action sequences with him to really show us what he was capable of, because he really is Russia's one and only super soldier. He is supposed to be the Russian Captain America, but he gets taken out rather easy, which ended up not sitting with me quite as well, because throughout the MCU and even in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, we saw like the damage that super soldiers can do, like their capabilities, really how dangerous they can be. Also, we never really find out why he was put in jail. We know who put him in jail, but the details as to the why are kind of clouded. It seemed kind of weird that the main villain here would want to take a fairly powerful piece off his chessboard, which then segues into other questions that the movie presents but never really answers. For one, the drug that manages to break all of the Black Widow mind control that's going on. I mean, we know who Yelena got it off of, but she was another Black Widow operative, so who made the drug? Did she herself break her own mind control and then manage to synthesize a drug? We're never really told. We know Yelena sent the drug to Natasha, hoping that she could take it to, say Tony Stark or something, and synthesize a whole bunch of it in order to use around the Black Widow operatives, across the globe. Except Yelena didn't really include a note as to what it is or why it's important. So Natasha didn't really know what to do with it. I don't know, seems like even some kind of coded message might have been useful here. And then, although a really cool sequence where Yelena and Natasha end up duking it out, I do catch myself wondering, okay, if Yelena trusted Natasha enough to give her all of the vials to synthesize, this drug on a large scale, why would she attack her on first sight? I mean, you could argue that yes, maybe, Natasha got the drug, but then she came here, so, she must be, working for the Red Room too. Like she's back under mind control herself or something. Because she knows that Black Widow isn't really there as an Avenger because the Avengers were effectively disbanded. It's the only reasoning in my head that I can really come up with. And then when it comes to Taskmaster, like I said, very interesting action sequences, but there was always something kind of itching at the back of my mind. Things I'm noticing, little details about the story and, what Taskmaster does. And in particularly, what Taskmaster doesn't do, which is talk. And then as more information is being presented, I'm starting to think to myself, oh my gosh, they're going to X-Men Origins Wolverine, aka Deadpool Taskmaster, aren't they? And then the reveal comes, and this isn't actually the comics rendition of Taskmaster. Instead, Taskmaster ends up being the daughter of the main villain who Natasha thought she had killed early on in her career with the Avengers, aka the thing that was supposed to get her to completely defect to S.H.I.E.L.D. Because if we recall back to Avengers, Loki and Natasha, they're talking, and then he brings up Dreykov's daughter. And yeah, that's what happens. She went to S.H.I.E.L.D., they said, okay, hey, just kill Dreykov for us, and you will be one of us. But Dreykov's daughter is also in the room, but Natasha gives the all clear anyway because, hey, she was collateral damage. And for years, thought she had killed her. But it turns out, no. Instead, she's just scarred up and became another assassin for Dreykov. And while I could say it thematically makes sense, this isn't the Taskmaster I wanted to see. Even in design, this version of Taskmaster looks like someone who more so does motocross than goes on covert spy missions. And also, when all said and done, isn't really in the movie all that much. Although, Taskmaster is in the movie at least longer than the actual villain, Dreykov, who ends up being this short, fat dude that gets off on power and is angered rather easy when people make fun of him and tries to project himself as being a bigger man than he really is. And by the time the character was killed off at the end, I thought, okay, I barely knew you, but hey, you were the bad guy. Which, of course, the ending of the movie happens, the Red Room gets taken down, there's one last confrontation with Taskmaster, Natasha uses the red drug to break Taskmaster's mind control, she gets to say she's sorry. She make amends with her quote-unquote family. Thunderbolt Ross is on the way to arrest her, and Natasha stays behind, allowing her family to get away. We cut to black, and then we pick up sometime later, and Natasha has her blonde hair. How did she get away from Thunderbolt Ross? Ran in the opposite directions? It's not really addressed. But hey, she gets the Quinjet and says she's gonna start rounding up people and breaking, like Ant-Man and Hawkeye, out of the prison. Fade to black, credits roll, Marvel after credit scene, which I'm totally gonna spoil because I did give you all a spoiler warning. It picks up sometime after Endgame. Yelena returns to visit the grave of her sister Natasha. Then Valentina Fontaine shows up and is like, hey, I can give you the guy that got her killed, and gives her a picture of Hawkeye. And then the movie ends. So all in all, what can I say about it? I like it better than Captain Marvel. And I do think that the core MCU fan base is going to like this film. Because again, it's got all of the MCU elements in there. I think Taskmaster is going to be the most divisive part of this film. And it'll probably make some money for Disney. But now I pose the question to you, what did you think of Black Widow? If you've seen it, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you like this video, I'd love it if you'd smash that like button, share it with some friends, subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and ring that notification bell for more comic book content. And if you're wondering what to watch next, consider one of these 2 videos. Alright, take care, have a great day, and as always, stay geeky.